Today in MATLAB Practical Examples, we're going to look at a data set that has the data points coming in pairs, and those pairs are separated onto two separate axes. And we're going to set it up such that when you click on one of the points, the corresponding point in the other axes will also highlight, like this. Okay, let's see how this was implemented inside of MATLAB. The first thing we're going to need to do inside of this function is put in our data set. Now that we have that, what we're going to want to do is make a plot of all these data pairs. But we need to be able to set the marker size so that we can distinguish the point that we've clicked on. So rather than doing one plot, we're actually going to do several plots. And one of the best ways to do that is with the line command. Let's see how that is done. For I equals 1, and I like to use number of elements, depth, so that I'm going to loop through each of the elements of depth, and I'm going to say subplot, and I want there to be one row, 2 columns, and I'm going to go into the first of these plots. Then I'm going to need to grab the handle here. I'm going to be plotting the handle of depth versus density. So I'm going to say HDD, and then I want to be dealing with the first element in that. So I'm going to index in with I, and we're just going to say equals line, and we're going to plot depth. Which element of depth? Well, the ith element. Then we're going to plot the density like this. Also the ith element. And for now, why don't we just set the marker like this, and we're going to set it to be a circle. That should be good enough. Now we're going to do the same thing for a second subplot, so I'm just going to copy that. I like to have these lined up so we can see the parallelism here. This is now going to be the second plot in there. And instead of depth and density, we're going to do porosity, like this. And I like to make sure that everything lines up with the commas. I think it just makes it easier for your eye to see what's going on. And now we want a square rather than a circle. And let's hit end here and see what our plot looks like. And it looks like we've got our plot. So things are going well here. Next, what I need to do is make it such that when I click on any one of these points, I fire off a callback. And that callback is going to look for the corresponding point in the other plot and also change its marker size. So there's a little trick that we're going to need to do here. When I click on any one of these points, I need to know which of the I elements it is. And so I can store that value, that index, inside of the data point. And we're going to use user data field to do that. Let's come over here, and I'm going to use the ellipses to extend out to the next line, because I like my property value pairs to all line up nicely here. And I'm going to say that user data, which is just a generic field that we can put anything in. I want user data to be equal to I. That is the index that we're looping through here. So let's grab all of that, plot it, and I guess we don't need the ellipses there right now. And that shouldn't change anything, but now there's user data associated with that. Now we're going to need that user data, so let's set a callback. And so we want the callback to be the button down function. How did I know I wanted the button down function, other than just the fact that I've done this for years? Well, let's figure out how I would find that out. I'm going to set the breakpoint here. And I'm going to run, and I can see just one of these has been plotted with the line command. And I want to say get HDD. And if I look down here in the command window, here are all of the values that have been defined with this, and I see that one of them is called the button down function. If I were to read the documentation, I would find out that that is the callback that occurs when you click on that object. So now that we know we want the button down function, let's come back here and ellipses again, and we're going to say button down FCN, and let's get these to line up nicely. And I'm going to call that highlight pair. The @ symbol means that we're using a function handle. Let's copy that again. Very good. Now we need to define this highlight pair. So we're going to end this main function. So let's nest that function inside here. I know the function is going to be called function highlight pair. And inside here, what is this thing going to do? Well, it's going to highlight that pair of points. And which pair of points do I want it to highlight? Well, there's going to be the pair number that I just clicked. And how am I going to know that? Well, I can say get callback object. That is whatever it is we clicked that called this callback. I'm going to get its user data. So now I know whatever I just clicked, that number that we set in the user data is going to be called pair number now. So I can say set HDD pair number, and I want the marker size to go to the big size. And we better define the big size. Big size is equal to 10. Like that. Perfect. And why don't we do the same thing not only for HDD, but also HDP, that is porosity. I forgot to change that up here. Very good. And let's run this. Okay, what didn't it like? Aha! I did not end this function. Get rid of the breakpoint and run again. Now when I click here, alright, too many input arguments. Oh, I know what this is about. Whenever these callbacks are fired, MATLAB is automatically going to give 3 inputs to the function, whether you want it or not. And those are going to be GCBO, that's the get callback object, event data, and handles. Only one of these is defined, GCBO. The rest are only defined when you're using guide. Okay, so let's save and run that. Let's look here. Aha! It's working. We're highlighting them, but we're not unhighlighting the old one, and they're not getting that much bigger. But this is a start. So we can solve that by making the bigger size 20 instead of 10. And now we want to be able to know what the currently selected is and set its value to the original size of the marker. So I'm going to say that current, the point that was current before we clicked, is going to be get the current figure user data. So we're going to store the value of the one that was most recently clicked inside of GCF, the current figure. So we should initiate that up above also. set GCF user data. When you first start this program, of course, it's empty. So we'll set it like that. And what do we want to do? We want to come in here, and before we set the one that we just clicked, pair num, to be bigger, we want to set the current one to the default, like this. And what is the default size? I could go get the marker, and I would find out that it is 6. So let's try that. Oh, we're not updating the current data here. So at the end, we're going to say set get current figure user data to be I, or pair number, like this. And so whatever pair number is going to be the new current. So then we come back here the next time, it can be reset. So now we click here, and everything seems to be working just fine. Perfect. Now if we wanted to get really fancy with this, instead of just changing the marker size, we could be changing the color or what have you. All right, thank you.